قال المؤلف رحمه الله, said the author, may Allah have mercy upon him, ونرى المسح على الخفين في السفر والحضر. And we see wiping upon the two khuffs while traveling and residing, or while traveling or residing. We see means we believe in that. We see means we believe in that. SharH, the explanation, is أن أهل السنة متفقون على جواز المسح على الخفين. That the people of the prophetic way are in agreement about the permissibility of wiping upon the khuffs في السفر والحضر, while traveling or residing. لأن حديثه خبر متواتر, because the hadith about that is a successive mass report, or the hadiths about that reach the level of a successive mass report. قال الحسن البصري, Al-Hasan al-Basri said, أدركت 70 نفرا من أصحاب رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم يرون المسح على الخفين. I have encountered 70 of the companions of the Messenger of God sallallahu alayhi wasallam who believe in the validity of wiping upon the khuffs. That's his quote. وَلَا اعْتِدَادَ بِمَنْ خَالَفَ فِي ذَلِكَ. And there is no regard given to anyone who dissents in this case, whether he was a Mu'tazili or a Shi'i or anyone else. قال المؤلف رحمه الله, said the author, may Allah have mercy upon him, ولا نحرم نبيذ التمر. And we do not forbid date-soaked water. الشرح أن نبيذ التمر أي ما نقع في الماء إلى أن تنحل حلاوته في الماء ثم يشرب هو حلال. The explanation is that nabidh of date, nabidh, meaning that in which dates soaked in, yani that water in which dates soaked until the sweetness of the dates dwelled in the water, and then that water is drank or drunk. I think it's drank. Huwa halal, that's lawful. وَكَذَلِكَ الزَّبِيبِ. And likewise, if that were done with raisins. وَلَوْ حَصَلَ فِيهِ تَغَيُّرٌ. Even if it resulted in the water changing. مَا لَمْ يَنْتَهِ إِلَى الشِّدَّةِ الْمُسْكِرَةِ. As long as it doesn't reach the level of being intoxicating. فَإِذَا حَدَثَتْ فِيهِ شِدَّةُ الْمُسْكِرَةِ. And when it becomes intoxicating, فَهُوَ حَرَامٌ قَلِيلُهُ وَكَثِيرُهُ. Then a little bit of it is forbidden as well as a lot of it. أي القدر الذي يسكر منه والقدر الذي لا يسكر منه حرام. Meaning that the amount of it that is intoxicating as well as the amount of it that is not intoxicating is forbidden. وهذا ما رجحه أبو يوسف ومحمد بن الحسن. And this is what was deemed weighty by Abu Hanifa's disciples, Abu Yusuf and Muhammad ibn al-Hasan. خلافا للمنقول عن أبي حنيفة, as opposed to what was logged about Abu Hanifa, أنه لا يحرم إلا القدر الذي يسكر, that nothing is forbidden according to him but an intoxicating amount. And here's a footnote. This opinion is inapplicable, means not permissible to take this saying, because of its opposition to an explicit authentic hadith. ما أسكر كثيره فقليله حرام. That hadith which is any drink whose abundant amount is intoxicating, then its small amount is still forbidden. So that's an example of a mujtahid who made an ijtihad, and it's not permissible to take his ijtihad. That's called shadh. That's an irregular saying, qawlun shadh, or an anomalous saying. This is where things get dangerous for the layman, because haram to practice this. If you practice the saying of Abu Hanifa, you will be sinful. هذا رأي أبي حنيفة في خمر غير هذا رأي أبي حنيفة في خمر غير العنب. This is Abu Hanifa's opinion concerning wine from other than the grape. أما خمر العنب فتحرم قطرة منه عنده وعند غيره. As for the wine made of grape, even a mere drop of it is forbidden, according to him and according to others. قال المؤلف رحمه الله, said the author, may Allah have mercy upon him, ولا يبلغ ولي درجة الأنبياء أصلا. And a saint does not reach the level of the prophets fundamentally. He doesn't get into their realm. ولا يصل العبد إلى حيث يسقط عنه الأمر والنهي. And a slave of God does not achieve a status where commands and prohibitions are inapplicable to him. SharH, the explanation. أن العبد لا يصل مهما اشتغل بالمجاهدة وكثرة الطاعة ومخالفة الأهواء وتجنب الملاذ من المآكل والمشارب والاختلاء عن الناس والانقطاع للعبادة والفكر والذكر. The explanation is that the slave will not reach, regardless of how busy he was with fighting himself and abundance of worship and avoiding delicious foods and drinks and secluding himself from the people and secluding himself for the sake of worship and pondering and dhikr. مهما جد في ذلك لا يصل إلى درجة الأنبياء. Regardless of how much effort one puts in that, he will never reach the level, the realm of the prophets in status. ولا يصل إلى حيث يسقط عنه التكاليف الشرعية. And he will not reach a point where religious responsibilities are inapplicable to him. وإنما يسقط التكليف عند زوال العقل. Rather, accountability is inapplicable when the mind goes away, when one loses his mind. حتى الولي, even the saint, إذا زال عقله سقط عنه التكليف. If his mind goes away, then accountability is inapplicable to him. حتى يعود إلى عقله, until he comes back to his senses. But this saint who lost his mind, he did not lose his mind by a sickness, and he did not lose his mind by a blow to the head. Rather, he lost his mind from the love of God. So it's a different loss of mind. And he will still be a saint. And he could still even do supernatural feats as a saint who lost his mind. Anyway, saints, they might do supernatural feats deliberately or not. Allah creates the supernatural phenomenon that would be a privilege for that saint, even if that saint sometimes did not intend to do something. And same thing for a prophet. Allah creates for a prophet some supernatural phenomenon that will be counted as a miracle for that prophet, even if he did not have an intention. Like when the fish came back to life in the story of Moses. He was asleep, and this is counted as a miracle of his. And that is why we believe in the validity of tawassul by prophets and saints after their deaths, because they still do miracles and karamas even after they die. So they are still useful and blessed after their deaths. قال المؤلف رحمه الله, said the author, may Allah have mercy upon him, والنصوص من الكتاب والسنة تحمل على ظواهرها. And the texts from the book, with a capital B, and the prophetic way, meaning the hadiths, are taken by their apparent meanings. That's the default position, to take them as they appear, not to give them an alternative interpretation. والردول عنها إلى معاني يدعيها أهل الباطن إلحاد. And diverging from that, from those apparent meanings, to meanings claimed by the Allegorists, is irreligiousness, because it is toying with the religion. The Allegorists are people who don't believe in Islam. They're not Muslims, but they would affiliate themselves with Islam. They would say that they are Muslims, and they pervert the meanings of the ayahs of the Quran deliberately, in a way that for these people doesn't even have support from the Arabic language. Like they might say the rivers of paradise, this means wisdom. So where'd that come from? How do you get this meaning from rivers of paradise? And why would somebody do that? So that they can misguide the people because of their true hatred for Islam. And they want to ruin the religion of the Muslims. So if they can find a Muslim to prey upon and get him out of his religion, they will do so. And so that they can get his money, and so that they can get women. وَرَدُّ النُّصُوصِ كُفْرٌ. And rejecting the religious texts is blasphemy. SharH, the explanation. أن النص القرآني والنص الحديثي يحملان على الظاهر, is that the Quranic text and the Hadith text are both taken by the apparent meaning by default. ما لم يدل دليل عقلي أو سمعي على وجوب العدول عن ذلك, as long as there is not an intellectual or documentary evidence that proves the necessity of diverting away from the apparent meaning. فعندئذ يحمل على غير الظاهر للضرورة. If that were to occur, then they would be interpreted by other than their apparent meanings for the necessity. The necessity of keeping the religious texts clear of contradiction. فالتأويل لغير ذلك عبث. And alternative interpretation for other than this is toying with the religion. والنص الصحيح إذا خالف ظاهره مقتضى العقل يؤول فيعمل به. If there were an authentic text, that means an ayah from the Quran or a confirmed hadith of the Prophet alayhi salatu wassalam, and its apparent meaning is contrary to the sound mind, then it will be given an alternative interpretation that complies with the religion and the rules of Arabic language. فَيُعْمَلُ بِهِ, and then it will be practiced like that. It's not going to be disregarded. It cannot be disregarded because it's authentic. So we want to keep it. But it appears to be against the sound mind. Then, if it really came from the Prophet, it won't be against the sound mind. So we're going to interpret it in a correct way and then work according to it under that interpretation. كذلك إذا خالف نص غير متواتر النص المتواتر إن خالف حديث الآحاد حديثا متواترا وقبل التأويل يعمل به. And likewise, if there were a hadith that is not a successive mass report, mutawatir report, that contradicts an explicit mass narrated report. If a report of individuals, a hadith of individuals, is contrary to a successive mass report, and this hadith of mere individuals, a hadith narrated by a loner or two people or three people or more than three people, but it's not a successive mass report. If this report of individuals that is apparently contrary to a successive mass report, if it accepts an alternative interpretation, يُعْمَلُ بِهِ, then it will be preserved and it will be practiced according to its alternative interpretation. وَإِلَّا فَيُقْطَعُ بِأَنَّهُ غَيْرُ صَحِيحٍ. Or else, if it contradicts an explicit mass narrated report and does not accept an alternative interpretation according to the rules of the language and the rules of the religion, then it will be definitively determined to be inauthentic. أما التأويل لغير سبب شرعي. As for an alternative interpretation lacking a religious reason, a religious justification, من مخالفة صريح العقل, such as going against the sound mind, أو الحديث المتواتر, or such as contradicting a successive mass report, فهو عبث مردود. That is a rejected toying of the religion. Yes. And even sometimes the alternative interpretation does not lead to deviance, and still the fact that it is an alternative interpretation that is not necessary, it weakens the argument of the one who uses it. That's why we say that what's correct is that prophets could possibly commit some sort of sin. The kind that is a small sin that does not display low character, and that he would repent immediately before anyone follows him, because that's what appears from the Quran. And to say otherwise would result in reinterpreting those ayat while you're able to take them as they are. And that's why some other things too, like one of the reasons why what the Maturidis say about the case of Takween is stronger than what the Ash'aris say. Because the Maturidis, their explanation does not require any ta'wil, while the Ash'ari way to explain this issue requires some maneuvering in the language. That maneuvering that the Ash'aris would have to do there, the Maturidis take it, meaning they use it against the Ash'ari to weaken their arguments. And also other cases, although the cases that I just told you now are not cases that made someone deviant outside of Ahlus Sunnah. وقوله والعدول عنها إلى معان يدعيها أهل الباطن إلحاد. And when An-Nasafiyyah said, diverting from the apparent meanings to meanings claimed by the Allegorists is irreligiousness. يعني أن تأويلات الباطنية وَمَنْ أَشْبَهَهُمْ مِنْ غُلَاةِ الْمُتَصَوِّفَةِ. He means that the interpretations of the Allegorists and those who are like them, such as the radical pseudo-Sufis, مما يؤدي إلى مخالفة الضروريات, these interpretations that lead to going against the necessary and fundamental matters of the religion, هو إلحاد وكفر. It's blasphemy, it's irreligiousness and blasphemy. For example, the Allegorists would recite what's in Surah Quraysh, فَلْيَعْبُدُوا رَبَّ هَذَا الْبَيْتِ. You know this ayah. Let them worship the Lord of this house. The real meaning is, let those Qurayshites worship the Lord of this house, this Kaaba that is in their territory. So how did the Allegorists explain this ayah? They said, well, the Rabb is the soul, and the Bayt is the body. So what does that mean if you put that? That means those people are saying, worship yourself. So that's definitely blasphemy. أما أهل الباطن الذين ليسوا من هذا القبيل. Now as for the Allegorists who are not of this type, إنما هم يفهمون من النصوص القرآنية إنما هم يفهمون من النصوص القرآنية والحديثية معاني لا تتناقض مع الظاهر. The type of Allegorists who understand from the Quranic and the Hadith texts meanings that do not contradict the apparent meanings. فَلَا بَأْسَ بِذَلِكَ. There's no harm in that. Shaykh Samir once gave us an example. I don't remember that example. وَقَوْلُهُ وَرَدُّ النُّصُوصِ كُفْرٌ. And when he said rejecting the texts is blasphemy, يعني أن رد النص القرآني أو النص الحديث يعني أن رد النص القرآني أو النص الحديثي مع اعتقاده أنه كلام الله وكلام رسول الله كفر. He means that rejecting the Quranic text or the Hadith text while having the conviction that it is indeed the speech of God or the speech of the Messenger of God is blasphemy. وكذلك من اعتقد النص الذي هو غير قطعي أنه من دين الله. And likewise, anyone who believed in a text that's not definitively indisputable. He believed that a text which its reality is that it's not definitively indisputable, but he did believe about it that it is from the religion of God. Although in reality it's not indisputable, definitively indisputable, but he believes that it is from the religion of God. ثم رده, and then he rejects it, فهو كافر, then he is a disbeliever. قال المؤلف رحمه الله, said the author, may Allah have mercy upon him.
Sorry. Can you say that again, please?
Sorry?
Can you say the last part again? I didn't hear it.
Yes. So if someone believes, if he has a text, let's say a hadith or something, not an ayah, let's say, but something that's not an ayah, maybe it's a hadith, or it could be even something else like a statement of a companion, for example. And so the point is that it's not indisputable, it's not definitively indisputable. It's not definitively indisputable. It has some way to be possibly disputable. Like, who knows, maybe one of the men in the chain of narration had a slip of the tongue. And you might say, well, you're reaching there, aren't you? Okay, but it's possible. Yeah, it's not definitively indisputable. It's possibly is possibly disputable. So that is its reality, but he believes that it is from the religion, for sure. And he denies it or rejects it. Then he's a kafir.
Yeah, thank you.
قال المؤلف رحمه الله, said the author, may Allah have mercy upon him, واستحلال المعصية كفر, and legalizing the disobedience is blasphemy. الشرح أن جعل المعصية صغيرة كانت أم كبيرة حلالا إذا ثبت كونها معصية بطريق القطع فهو كفر. The explanation is that making a sin, be it small or big, lawful. Making it lawful when it is confirmed that it is a sin by a definitive way, then this legalization is blasphemy. So here Imam An-Nasafiyyah, he's gonna, in this portion of his creedal manual, is listing some cases of blasphemy, although it's not in the extensive details that we are accustomed to when we learned about blasphemy in some of the books of the Shaykh. But nevertheless, this is a segment on some cases of blasphemy. And he just told us, وَرَدُّ النُّصُوصِ كُفْرٌ, rejecting the religious texts is blasphemy. Then he says, and legalizing the disobedience is blasphemy, and minimalizing the severity of the sin is blasphemy, and belittling the religious law is blasphemy, and despairing of God's mercy is blasphemy, and feeling safe from the torture of God is blasphemy. So we want to read through these now. So he said, وَالِاسْتِهَانَةُ بِهَا كُفْرٌ, and minimalizing the severity of a sin is blasphemy. الشرح, the explanation, أَنَّ الَّذِي يَسْتَهِينُ بِالْمَعَاصِي, the explanation is that the one who belittles the sins. Well, what does that mean? أَيْ يَعْتَبِرُهَا لَا بَأْسَ بِهَا, with the meaning that he sees them that there's nothing wrong with them. That's what it means, to belittling the severity of the sin or the significance of the sin. فَهُوَ كَافِرٌ, then he's a disbeliever. أو يعتبر المعصية التي هي كبيرة شرعا صغيرة, or he deems a sin that is religiously a major sin as a minor sin, مع كونها أجمع المسلمون على أنها كبيرة, although it is a case that the Muslims have agreed to be a major sin, وكان أمرها مشتهرا بين المسلمين, and its judgment was famous amongst the Muslims, so that means known in the religion by necessity, that it is a major sin and not a minor sin. فإن هذا يرجع إلى تكذيب صاحب الشرع, then this denial goes back to contradicting the lawbringer. Sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. قال المؤلف رحمه الله والاستهزاء على الشريعة كفر, and degrading the religious law or the sacred law is blasphemy. SharH, the explanation is وذلك لأن الاستهزاء بالشريعة وذلك لأن الاستهزاء بالشريعة من حيث الإجمال أو من حيث بعض أمورها مع العلم بكون ذلك من الشريعة ردة وكفر. The explanation is that is because belittling the sacred law in general, or belittling some of its matters while knowing that is from the sacred law, is apostasy and blasphemy. وَمِنَ الْكُفْرِ أَنْ يُطْلِقَ كَلِمَةَ الْكُفْرِ اسْتِخْفَافًا لَا اعْتِقَادًا, and amongst the blasphemy is for someone to pronounce a word of blasphemy out of belittling, even without having a conviction in what he's saying, even without believing in what he's saying, but he is saying this blasphemy of sacrilege. Yani, amongst the blasphemy is for a person to say a blasphemous, a word of sacrilege, meaning a blasphemy of disrespect of the religion, without even having a conviction in the sacrilege that he said. وَإِن لَمْ يَكُنْ مُعْتَقِدًا بَلْ كَانَ مُسْتَهْزِئًا فَقَطُ. And rather, he's only a belittler, a demeanor, and not a believer in the sacrilege that he pronounced. He still committed blasphemy. And also An-Nasafiyyah had another statement. وَتَصْدِيقُ الْكَاهِنِ بِمَا يُخْبِرُهُ عَنِ الْغَيْبِ كُفْرٌ. And believing in the fortune teller about what he says concerning the unseen is blasphemy. But let's stop here. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك أشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت أستغفرك وأتوب إليك.